The ringing phone jolted Jessica Morgan from her concentration. She glanced at the unfamiliar number on her screen, hesitating before answering. It was probably another telemarketer. With a resigned sigh, she picked up. "Hello," Jessica Morgan speaking. "Is this Robert Williams?" The voice on the other end was small, uncertain, a child's voice. Jessica frowned. "No, I'm sorry. You have the wrong number." "Oh." The disappointment in that single syllable was palpable. "I was trying to call my mom's friend. She said if I ever needed help and couldn't reach her, I should call this number." Something in the boy's tone, a subtle tremor of worry, made Jessica pause instead of ending the call. "Is everything okay? Do you need help finding your mom?" "I'm at school and Mom was supposed to pick me up an hour ago. She's never late. I tried calling her, but she's not answering." The child's voice cracked slightly. "I'm Ethan. I'm 6. Jessica checked her watch. Nearly 5 o'clock on a Friday. Her dinner plans could wait. "Ethan, I'm not Robert, but maybe I can help. Where's your school?" "Oak Ridge Elementary." Ethan sounded a bit more hopeful now. "Mrs. Peterson is waiting with me, but she has to leave soon." "Can I talk to Mrs. Peterson for a moment?" There was a rustling sound as the phone changed hands. A woman's voice came on the line. "Hello? Who am I speaking with?" "My name is Jessica Morgan. Ethan called me by accident trying to reach someone named Robert. I understand his mother hasn't arrived yet." "That's correct. Olivia Turner is usually extremely punctual. We've tried calling her multiple times, but there's no answer. I'm growing concerned." Jessica made a quick decision. "I'd like to help. I know I'm a stranger, but perhaps I could come to the school and wait with Ethan until his mother arrives, or we can locate her." There was a pause. "Normally we wouldn't allow that, but I do need to leave for a personal commitment. Let me speak with the principal." 5 minutes later, after providing her ID information and agreeing to meet the principal in person, Jessica was in her car, heading toward Oak Ridge Elementary. She wasn't entirely sure why she felt compelled to help this random child who had dialed her number by mistake, but something told her it was the right thing to do. At the school, Jessica met Principal Garcia, who verified her identity and explained the situation. "We've continued trying to reach Ms. Turner, but with no success. We've also called the emergency contacts on file, but no one has answered. This is highly unusual for Olivia." "Has anyone checked her home or workplace?" Jessica asked. "We don't have the resources to do that," Principal Garcia explained. "If you're willing to wait with Ethan here at the school, we can call the police if Ms. Turner doesn't arrive soon." Jessica nodded, then followed the principal to a small office where a dark-haired boy sat swinging his legs nervously. When he looked up, Jessica was struck by his eyes, a distinctive shade of grey-blue that seemed oddly familiar. "Ethan, this is Ms. Morgan. She's going to wait with you while we keep trying to reach your mom." The boy gave her a small wave. "Are you sure you're not Robert?" Jessica smiled gently. "I'm sure. But I'm happy to help until we find your mom or Robert." She sat down in the chair beside him. "Do you have the right number for Robert? Maybe we could try calling again." Ethan pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "Mom wrote it down for emergencies." He handed it to Jessica. Looking at the number, Jessica realized why the call had come to her. The number was just 1 digit off from her own, a simple mistake by either Ethan or his mother when dialing. "I think I know what happened," Jessica explained. "Your number is very similar to mine. That's why you got me instead of Robert." As she spoke, she was already dialing the correct number. After 3 rings, a deep male voice answered. "Robert Williams speaking." "Hello, Mr. Williams. My name is Jessica Morgan. I'm calling because a boy named Ethan tried to reach you, but he dialed my number by mistake. He's at Oak Ridge Elementary School, and his mother, Olivia Turner, hasn't picked him up. He said you're his emergency contact." There was a long pause on the other end. When Robert spoke again, his voice had changed completely. "Olivia Turner's son? Did you say his name is Ethan?" "Yes, he's 6 years old." "Do you know them?" Another pause, longer this time. "I knew Olivia years ago. We were close, but I haven't spoken to her in nearly 7 years. His voice had a strange edge to it now. "I had no idea she had a son. And she listed me as an emergency contact." Jessica felt suddenly uncomfortable, sensing she had stumbled into something complicated. "That's what Ethan said. He has your number written down. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The call ended abruptly. Jessica turned to Ethan, who was looking at her hopefully. "Is Robert coming?" "Yes, he is." She smiled reassuringly, though her mind was racing with questions. The timing, 7 years since Robert had seen Olivia and Ethan was 6, created an obvious mathematical equation that Robert had clearly just calculated himself. While they waited, Jessica tried to keep Ethan distracted with conversation. "So, what grade are you in, Ethan?" "First grade. I can read chapter books already. Mum says I'm advanced." "That's impressive. What's your favorite book?" As Ethan chatted about dragon stories and adventure books, Jessica noticed more and more details that nagged at her. The shape of his jawline, the way he gestured when excited, they triggered a sense of déjà vu she couldn't place. Exactly 18 minutes after the call, the office door opened. A tall man in an impeccable charcoal suit stood in the doorway, slightly out of breath as though he'd been rushing. His grey-blue eyes, the exact same shade as Ethan's, scanned the room before locking onto the boy. For a moment, no one spoke. Robert Williams seemed frozen in place, staring at Ethan with an expression of disbelief and something else, recognition. Ethan looked up at the stranger curiously. "Are you Robert?" "Mum's friend." Robert swallowed visibly before answering. "Yes, I'm Robert." His voice was carefully controlled. "You must be Ethan." Jessica stood, extending her hand. "I'm Jessica Morgan, the wrong number that turned out right, I guess." Robert shook her hand distractedly, his gaze repeatedly returning to Ethan. "Thank you for stepping in. He trailed off, then seemed to collect himself. "Have you heard anything from Olivia yet?" "Nothing," Principal Garcia interjected, joining them from the hallway. "We're getting quite concerned. This is completely out of character for Ms. Turner." Robert nodded, pulling out his phone. "I still have her old number. Let me try calling." He stepped to the corner of the room, his back to them as he made the call. Jessica watched as his shoulders tensed while he waited. After a moment, he spoke urgently into the phone, then ended the call and turned back to them. "No answer," he said grimly. "But I think I know where she might be. Ethan, do you know if your mum was working today? She had a big meeting at the hospital. She's a nurse," Ethan explained. Robert's expression changed subtly at this information. "Providence Medical Center?" Ethan nodded. "I'm going to go check there," Robert said decisively. "She might have had an emergency with a patient." He hesitated, looking between Ethan and Jessica. "Would you be willing to come with us, Ms. Morgan? I think Ethan might be more comfortable with you there since you've been waiting with him." Jessica should have said no. She had dinner plans with friends, work to finish over the weekend. This wasn't her problem. Yet looking at Ethan's worried face and Robert's barely concealed turmoil, she found herself nodding. "Of course, I'll follow in my car." As they left the school, Robert knelt down to Ethan's eye level. "We're going to find your mom, okay? Everything's going to be fine." Ethan nodded bravely, but as they walked toward the parking lot, he slipped his small hand into Jessica's. She squeezed it gently, offering silent reassurance. What she couldn't tell him, what none of them could know yet, was that this accidental phone call had just upended multiple lives. And looking at Robert's face as he glanced back at the boy who had his exact eyes, Jessica knew exactly what was going through his mind. When was Olivia going to tell him he had a son? Providence Medical Center loomed before them, its glass facade reflecting the setting sun. Robert pulled into a visitor parking space, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Jessica parked beside him, helping Ethan from her back seat where he'd insisted on riding after they'd transferred his booster seat. "Mom works on the 3rd floor," Ethan informed them, suddenly eager now that they had a plan. "She helps the doctors with operations." Robert's jaw tightened at this casual revelation, another piece of Olivia's life he knew nothing about. "Surgical nurse," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. The trio made their way through the hospital's main entrance, Robert's confident stride causing several staff members to nod in recognition as they passed. Jessica noticed this with curiosity. "Do you work here?" she asked quietly. "No," Robert replied, pressing the elevator button. "But I'm on the hospital board." The elevator doors opened, and Ethan rushed in, pressing the number 3 with practiced familiarity. As they ascended, Jessica observed Robert surreptitiously studying Ethan's profile. The resemblance was unmistakable now that they stood side by side. The same high forehead, the same slight dimple in the right cheek when they smiled. On the 3rd floor, They approached the surgical nurses' station where a woman in purple scrubs looked up in surprise. "Ethan, what are you doing here, sweetie?" "We're looking for my mom," he explained. "She didn't come to pick me up from school." The nurse, her badge read Diane, frowned. "That's strange. Olivia left hours ago, right after her shift ended at 2. She mentioned picking you up." Her gaze shifted to Robert, and her eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Williams, I didn't expect to see you here today." "Hello, Diane. It's regarding Olivia. No one has been able to reach her since this afternoon." Diane's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "That's not like her at all. Let me check if anyone's heard from her." She picked up the phone, making several quick calls while Jessica kept Ethan occupied by the waiting area. Robert remained at the desk, his expression growing more tense with each passing minute. Finally, Diane hung up. "No one's heard from her since she left, but Jamie mentioned that Olivia seemed distracted today. Apparently she received some news that upset her." "What kind of news?" Robert asked sharply. Diane lowered her voice. "Something about Pacific Regional Hospital acquiring smaller practices. Olivia was concerned about it for some reason." Robert's face paled. "Pacific Regional? That's my company's latest acquisition." Jessica, who had approached in time to hear this, gave him a startled look. "You own Pacific Regional? Williams Healthcare Group owns it," he confirmed, running a hand through his dark hair. "We just finalized the purchase of several smaller medical practices yesterday." His eyes narrowed in thought. "If Olivia works at one of those practices part-time?" "She does," Diane confirmed. 2 days a week at Westside Family Practice." Robert exhaled slowly. "Which is now owned by my company." He turned to Jessica. "I need to check one more place. Would you mind staying with Ethan for a bit longer?" "I won't be long." Before Jessica could respond, Ethan tugged at Robert's sleeve. "I want to go too. I want to find Mom." Robert hesitated, clearly torn. Jessica made the decision for him. "We'll all go. Where are we headed?" "There's a park near Olivia's old apartment, our old apartment," Robert corrected himself. "She used to go there when she needed to think." 20 minutes later, they pulled into a small parking lot beside a neighborhood park. The playground was empty as dusk approached, but Robert's attention was fixed on a bench overlooking a small pond. "There," he said quietly, pointing to a solitary figure sitting hunched over, staring at the water. Ethan recognized her immediately. "Mom!" he cried, bolting from the car before either adult could stop him. Olivia Turner's head snapped up at the sound of her son's voice. Her face, already tear-stained, registered shock as she saw Ethan running toward her, followed by Robert Williams and a woman she didn't recognize. "Ethan, what are you—" She caught him in a fierce hug, then looked up in confusion. "Robert, how did you—" "You didn't pick Ethan up from school," Robert said, his voice carefully neutral. "He tried calling your emergency contact, but dialed wrong and reached Jessica instead." He gestured to Jessica, who gave an awkward half-wave. "The school— Oh my God!" Olivia pressed a hand to her mouth, fresh tears welling. "I completely lost track of time. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Mom. We found you." Ethan seemed more relieved than upset now. Jessica, sensing the tension between the adults, stepped forward. "Ethan, why don't we go see if we can spot any ducks on the pond while your mom and Robert talk?" Olivia gave her a grateful look as Jessica led Ethan a short distance away, close enough to be seen but far enough to give the former couple privacy. Left alone, Robert sat beside Olivia on the bench, maintaining a careful distance between them. For several moments, neither spoke. "When were you going to tell me?" Robert finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Olivia stared at her hands. "I don't know. I kept waiting for the right time, and then so much time passed that it seemed impossible. 6 years, Olivia, 6 years of his life, my son's life. I tried to tell you when I first found out," she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. "You were in London, and when I called, your assistant said you were in meetings all day. I left messages, you never called back." Robert's brow furrowed. "I never got any messages about a pregnancy." "Not about a pregnancy, no. Just that I needed to talk to you about something important. By the time you finally returned my call 3 weeks later, you were engaged to Victoria." The name hung between them like a physical presence. "You announced it in that call," Olivia continued, her voice hollow with remembered pain. "You said you'd met someone amazing in London, that it was sudden, but you'd never been more certain of anything. How was I supposed to tell you then? That I was pregnant with your child, Just as you were planning your perfect life with your perfect fiancé. Robert closed his eyes briefly. Victoria and I divorced 4 years ago. I know, Olivia admitted. I saw it in the business news. And still you didn't tell me. Olivia turned to face him fully now. Would it have mattered? You were building your empire. William's healthcare group was expanding nationwide. What would you have wanted with a nurse and a toddler? We would have disrupted your perfect life. That wasn't your decision to make, Robert said, his voice hardening. He's my son too. Is he? Olivia challenged, though her voice trembled. Biologically, yes. But being a father means being there, Robert. It means school pickups and stomach bugs at 3 a.m. and swimming lessons. It's not something you can delegate to your assistant or handle via video call between board meetings. Robert flinched, as if she'd slapped him. You didn't even give me the chance to try. Near the pond, Jessica was desperately trying to keep Ethan distracted, as the conversation on the bench grew visibly tense. She pointed out patterns in the clouds, asked about his favorite subjects at school, anything to keep his attention away from the emotional scene unfolding behind them. Is Robert my dad? Ethan asked suddenly, his eyes fixed on a dandelion he was twirling between his fingers. Jessica nearly choked. What makes you ask that? Ethan shrugged with the simple logic of childhood. We have the same eyes, and Mom has pictures of him in a box under her bed. She gets sad when she looks at them sometimes. I think, Jessica said carefully, that's something you should ask your mom about. Back on the bench, the conversation had shifted. Why was my number still your emergency contact? Robert asked. Olivia sighed. I never changed it. Stupid, I know. I think part of me always hoped. She trailed off, then shook her head. It doesn't matter now. Today, when I heard about William's healthcare acquiring Westside, I panicked. I knew it was only a matter of time before you saw my name on the employee roster. I came here to figure out what to do. And what did you decide? To leave, she admitted. To take Ethan and move to Portland, where my sister lives. To start over somewhere your shadow doesn't reach. Robert was silent for a long moment. I have missed 6 years of my son's life because you decided I wouldn't want him, wouldn't want you, in my life. Don't you think you owe me the chance to prove you wrong before you disappear again? Before Olivia could answer, Ethan came running back, Jessica following apologetically behind him. Mum, can we get pizza? I'm starving. He looked between the adults. Can Robert and Jessica come too? They helped find you. The simple request diffused some of the tension. Olivia wiped her eyes and managed a smile. Yes, pizza sounds good, and of course they're invited if they'd like to join us. She looked questioningly at Robert and Jessica. Jessica, who had been checking her phone, grimaced. I actually need to get going. I'm already late for dinner with friends. I'll stay, Robert said, his eyes meeting Olivia's. We have a lot to talk about. As they walked back to the cars, Ethan slipped his hand into Robert's, an unconscious gesture that made the man freeze momentarily before gently closing his fingers around his son's. Jessica said her goodbyes, exchanging numbers with both Olivia and Robert. As she drove away, she glanced in her rearview mirror at the 3 figures standing in the parking lot, an accidental family brought together by a wrong number and years of unspoken truths. What she didn't know then was that this wasn't the last she would see of them, not by a long shot. 3 weeks after the park incident, Jessica found herself back at Providence Medical Center, this time as a patient. A minor kitchen accident had left her with a deep cut that required stitches. She sat in the emergency room, holding gauze to her palm and wondering how long the wait would be. Jessica? She looked up to see Olivia Turner in navy blue scrubs, staring at her in surprise. Olivia? I didn't expect to see you here. I picked up an extra shift in the ER, Olivia explained, approaching to examine Jessica's injury. What happened? Sliced my hand while cutting avocados. The curse of millennial cooking, Jessica joked, wincing as Olivia gently removed the gauze. You'll need stitches, but it's not too bad. Let me get you into a room. Olivia helped her up, leading her past the waiting area to a curtained examination space. As Olivia prepared the suture kit, Jessica couldn't help but ask, How are things going? With Robert and Ethan. Olivia's hands paused briefly before resuming their work. It's been complicated. Robert wants to be involved in Ethan's life, which is good. They've been spending time together on weekends. She cleaned Jessica's wound with careful precision. But there's a lot of history between us, and not all of it is pleasant. Ethan seems excited about it, though, Jessica observed. He texted me a picture of the model rocket they built together. Olivia looked up in surprise. You've been in touch with Ethan? Robert asked if I'd mind staying connected. He thought it might help Ethan with the transition, having someone neutral who was there from the beginning. Jessica shrugged. I like the kid. He's smart and funny. A small smile touched Olivia's lips. He is, isn't he? He's talking non-stop about Robert now. It's Robert this and Robert that. Yesterday he asked if he could call him Dad. And how do you feel about that? Olivia focused intently on preparing the local anesthetic. Scared, she admitted finally. Robert lives in a different world. His company is worth billions. He has homes in 3 countries. He dates models and socialites. Ethan and I don't fit into that life. Have you told Robert this? We don't really talk about us, just Ethan. Olivia injected the numbing medication with practiced ease. It's better that way. As Olivia began stitching her wound, Jessica pondered this. She'd seen the way Robert looked at Olivia in the park. There was history there, powerful and unresolved. So what's the long-term plan? Jessica asked. We're working out a formal custody arrangement, Olivia replied, her clinical focus on the sutures not quite masking the tension in her voice. Robert wants Ethan to attend Westlake Academy starting next fall. It's this prestigious private school where board members' children go. She tied off a stitch with perhaps more force than necessary. He's already talking about summer programs and college funds and creating a trust. That sounds generous? It is, and overwhelming, and completely unnecessary. Ethan is 6, not applying to Harvard. Olivia sighed. Sorry, I shouldn't be dumping this on you. It's fine, Jessica assured her. Consider it payment for these lovely stitches. Olivia managed a laugh, then grew serious again. The thing is, Robert keeps trying to solve everything with money and power. Just yesterday, he had his assistant call to tell me I've been transferred to the surgical department at Pacific Regional, with a substantial raise and better hours. He didn't even ask if I wanted to change hospitals. That's presumptuous, Jessica acknowledged. Exactly. And when I called to tell him I didn't want special treatment, he said he wasn't giving me special treatment. He was ensuring that the mother of his child had the best possible working conditions. Olivia shook her head in frustration. He doesn't get that I've built my life without his help for 6 years. I don't need him swooping in to fix everything. Before Jessica could respond, her phone chimed with a text message. She glanced at it while Olivia finished the final stitch. Speak of the devil, Jessica murmured. Robert? Jessica nodded. He's inviting me to Ethan's birthday party next weekend. Says Ethan specifically requested I come. Olivia smiled wryly as she bandaged Jessica's hand. Ethan adores you. He calls you his lucky wrong number. I'm honored, Jessica said sincerely. And I'd love to come if you're okay with it. Of course. Olivia disposed of the used materials. It's at Robert's house. He insisted on hosting. Something in her tone made Jessica ask, Have you been to his house before? Once, years ago, when we first started dating. It was being renovated then. Olivia's expression grew distant. I felt out of place even with the contractors around. I can only imagine how it looks now. The following Saturday, Jessica pulled up to the address Robert had provided and checked it twice, certain there must be some mistake. The house was actually a sprawling estate with manicured grounds and a circular driveway where luxury vehicles were parked. A valet approached as she stepped out of her modest sedan. Here for the Turner-Williams party? Jessica nodded, feeling immediately underdressed in her casual blouse and jeans. Inside, the foyer opened to a massive great room where at least 30 adults mingled, while twice as many children ran around in what appeared to be a professionally organized party, complete with entertainers. A massive bounce house visible through the French doors to the backyard, and catering staff circulating with hors d'oeuvres. Jessica, you made it! Robert appeared at her side, looking relaxed in designer jeans and a casual button-down that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Ethan will be thrilled. He's been asking when you'd arrive. This is quite a party, Jessica remarked, taking in the elaborate decorations themed around space exploration. Robert followed her gaze. Too much? He asked, a hint of uncertainty breaking through his confident demeanor. It's impressive, she answered diplomatically. Where's the birthday boy? Outside with the science demonstrator. We have someone showing the kids how to make small rockets. His pride was evident. Ethan's fascinated by space. As they moved toward the back patio, Jessica spotted Olivia standing near the doors, looking uncomfortable in a simple sundress while speaking with two elegantly attired women. The contrast was striking, Olivia's practical ponytail and minimal makeup against their professional blowouts and designer outfits. Excusing herself from Robert, Jessica made her way to Olivia, who greeted her with visible relief. "Thank God you're here," she whispered. "These are board members' wives. They've been asking me about my career journey in the most condescending way possible." Jessica suppressed a smile. "Where can I find Ethan to wish him happy birthday?" "I'll show you," Olivia said quickly, using it as an excuse to escape the conversation. Outside, they found Ethan with a group of children, watching in delight as small baking soda rockets launched into the air. When he spotted Jessica, he broke away from the group and ran to her. "You came!" he exclaimed, hugging her around the waist. "Wouldn't miss it," Jessica assured him. "Happy birthday, Space Explorer," Ethan beamed. "Dad got me a real telescope, and we're going to the observatory next weekend to see the stars." Jessica noted the easy way he said Dad now, and how Olivia tensed slightly beside her at the word. The party continued, with Jessica observing the strange dynamics at play. Robert moved effortlessly between conversations with his wealthy associates and moments with Ethan, while Olivia seemed increasingly isolated, speaking mostly with the few parents from Ethan's school who looked as out of place as she did. During the cake cutting, Robert stood beside Ethan, a proud hand on the boy's shoulder as everyone sang. Olivia stood on Ethan's other side, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she watched Robert charm the crowd with a speech about how blessed he felt to have Ethan in his life. "And of course none of this would be possible without Olivia," Robert added, turning to include her in the moment, "who has done an amazing job raising our son for the past 6 years." The formal acknowledgement, clearly meant as a compliment, only highlighted what had been missing. 6 years of birthdays, celebrations, and ordinary moments that Robert hadn't shared. After cake, as the party began to wind down, Jessica found herself alone with Robert on the patio. "Ethan seems to be adjusting well," she observed. Robert nodded, watching his son laughing with friends by the bounce house. "He's remarkable, so intelligent, so curious about everything. I've missed so much." "You can't get that time back," Jessica said gently, "but you have now and the future." "If Olivia allows it," Robert replied, a hint of bitterness in his tone. "She's resisting every suggestion I make. She turned down the position at Pacific Regional. She refuses to consider moving to a safer neighborhood. And she won't even discuss the educational trust I've set up for Ethan." "Maybe because all those things make her feel like you're trying to take control," Jessica suggested. "Like you don't think she's done a good enough job on her own." Robert frowned. "That's ridiculous. I'm just trying to provide opportunities." "Are you? Or are you trying to remake their lives into something that fits your world?" Jessica gestured around at the lavish party. "This isn't their normal, Robert. This is yours." Before he could respond, there was a commotion from the bounce house. Ethan had fallen and was crying, holding his arm at an awkward angle. Both Olivia and Robert rushed toward him. "Don't move him," Olivia said immediately, her nurse's training taking over. "Ethan, sweetie, tell me where it hurts." "My arm," he sobbed. "It's twisted funny." Robert hovered anxiously. "Should we call an ambulance?" "No need to frighten him more," Olivia replied calmly. "But we need to get him to the ER. I think it's broken." "I'll drive," Robert said decisively, already pulling out his phone. "I'll have the car brought around." What followed was a flurry of activity, guests being thanked for coming, Ethan being carefully moved to Robert's Mercedes, and Jessica volunteering to stay behind to help the staff with cleanup. Hours later, her phone chimed with a text from Olivia. "Confirmed break in the radius. They're putting on a cast now. Robert hasn't left his side for a second." Attached was a photo of Ethan in a hospital bed, looking pale but brave, with Robert holding his good hand. The worry and love on Robert's face were unmistakable. This was not a CEO or a billionaire, but simply a father terrified for his child. Jessica replied, "He looks like a natural dad." After a moment, Olivia's response came through. "He does. That's what scares me." Another text followed quickly. "Robert's insisting we stay at his house tonight so he can help with Ethan. Says his place has fewer stairs and more room. I don't know how to say no without seeming unreasonable." Jessica smiled at her phone. These two stubborn people circling each other, both trying to do what they thought was best for their son. Both afraid to admit what was becoming increasingly obvious to Jessica, that beneath the hurt and the years apart, there were still feelings there, complicated and unresolved. What neither of them realized was that their 6-year-old was several steps ahead of them. As Jessica put down her phone, she couldn't help wondering how this would all play out. The nurse and the CEO, thrust back into each other's lives by a child who connected them irrevocably. Two worlds colliding, with Ethan at the center, and herself somehow caught in the gravity of their complicated orbit. The next morning, another text arrived from Olivia. "Need to talk. Can you meet for coffee tomorrow?" Something in the message's brevity suggested urgency. Jessica replied immediately, "Of course, everything okay?" Olivia's response was equally cryptic. "Not sure. Robert just offered me a job as chief nursing officer for all his hospitals, and I'm actually considering it." The coffee shop buzzed with mid-morning activity when Jessica arrived. She spotted Olivia in the corner, already nursing what appeared to be her second cup of coffee, judging by the empty mug pushed aside. "That bad?" Jessica asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Olivia looked up with tired eyes. "I haven't slept properly in days. Between Ethan's arm, Robert's job offer, and everything else, my brain won't shut off." Jessica ordered her own coffee before asking, "So, chief nursing officer? That's impressive." "It's insane," Olivia countered, though without her usual defensiveness when discussing Robert's proposals. "It would mean overseeing nursing standards across 17 hospitals. The salary is—" She shook her head. "Let's just say it's more than double what I make now." "Are you qualified?" Jessica asked bluntly. Surprisingly, Olivia smiled. "That's what I asked Robert. He said, and I quote, 'You've been managing patient care for years. You have both surgical and emergency medicine experience, and you successfully raised our son while working full-time. You're more qualified than anyone else I could hire.'" "He's not wrong," Jessica pointed out. "The thing is," Olivia continued, rotating her mug absently, "I think I could do it, and do it well. But taking a job from Robert feels like—" She trailed off. "Like you're giving him control?" "Yes, no, I don't know." Olivia sighed in frustration. "It's complicated by the fact that we've been spending so much time together because of Ethan's arm. Robert has been staying at my apartment to help, sleeping on the couch, making breakfast, taking Ethan to follow-up appointments." Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Domestic bliss?" "Hardly. We've argued about everything from Ethan's medication schedule to the proper way to load a dishwasher." Despite her words, a hint of fondness crept into Olivia's voice. "But last night, after Ethan was asleep, we actually talked, really talked for the first time in 7 years. About everything. Why our relationship fell apart back then. His marriage and divorce. My struggles as a single mother." Olivia's eyes grew distant with the memory. "He showed me pictures of the charity hospital his company built in Nicaragua, dedicated to his mother who died of cancer when he was in college. I never knew about that." Jessica nodded encouragingly, sensing Olivia needed to process aloud. "He told me that after his divorce he threw himself into work because it was easier than admitting he'd failed at something personal. That acquiring hospitals and medical practices became his way of feeling like he was making a difference." Olivia looked up. "It made me realize I've been seeing the CEO persona and not the man underneath." "The man you fell in love with years ago?" Jessica suggested gently. Olivia's cheeks flushed slightly. "We were so young then, both still in school, me in nursing, him getting his MBA. We had nothing but ambition and each other." She paused. "This morning, watching him help Ethan get dressed one-handed, I caught a glimpse of that person again. So what's holding you back from the job? From giving, whatever this is, a chance?" "Fear," Olivia admitted. "Fear that I'll lose myself in his world. Fear that it's too good to be true. Fear that one day he'll realize a nurse from a small town doesn't fit into his life of board meetings and charity galas." Before Jessica could respond, her phone chimed with a text message. She glanced down, surprised to see Robert's name on the screen. "Speaking of your houseguest," she said, turning the phone to show Olivia. "He wants to meet me for lunch. Says it's important." Olivia frowned slightly. "He didn't mention that to me. Should I decline?" After a moment's hesitation, Olivia shook her head. "No, Go ahead, just... She paused. Let me know what he says. 2 hours later, Jessica sat across from Robert Williams at an upscale restaurant downtown. He looked both powerful and slightly harried, the pressed suit and confident demeanor of a CEO somewhat undermined by the faint shadows under his eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," he began once they'd ordered. "I needed someone objective to talk to, and you're the only person who understands the unique circumstances of this situation." "Because I'm the lucky wrong number," Jessica smiled. "Exactly." Robert returned the smile briefly before growing serious. "I've offered Olivia a position as CNO for my healthcare group." She mentioned it. Quite the promotion. "It's not charity," he said quickly. "She's brilliant. I've been reviewing her performance evaluations and speaking with her colleagues. She has a natural talent for systems improvement and patient advocacy. She'd be an asset to the company regardless of our personal connection." Jessica nodded. "I believe you. But that's not why you asked me here." Robert studied her for a moment, then sighed. "No, it's not. I need your perspective on something else." He hesitated. "I'm planning to ask Olivia to marry me." Jessica nearly choked on her water. "Excuse me? I know it seems sudden." "Sudden doesn't begin to cover it," Jessica interrupted. "A month ago, you didn't even know you had a son. Now you're proposing marriage. It's not like that," Robert insisted. "Olivia and I have history. We never really got proper closure." "And now with Ethan?" "So this is about Ethan," Jessica challenged. "Because children deserve parents who love each other, not parents who get married out of obligation." Robert's expression hardened. "I never stopped loving her." The simple declaration hung between them, startling in its rawness. "I convinced myself I had," he continued more quietly, "that our relationship had been a youthful mistake. I threw myself into building my company, married Victoria because she fit the image of the wife a successful CEO should have, but it was never right. Does Olivia know how you feel?" "I've been trying to show her," Robert admitted. "But every time I try to help, to offer her and Ethan the life they deserve, she pulls away." "Maybe because you're trying to buy her," Jessica suggested bluntly. "The job offer, the house you keep mentioning, the private school for Ethan, these are all things that come with strings attached." Robert looked genuinely confused. "What strings?" "The expectation that she'll conform to your world, that she'll become the person you think she should be rather than the person she is." Jessica leaned forward. "Robert, you missed 6 years of their lives. You can't just swoop in and rearrange everything to suit your vision." His jaw tightened. "So what should I do? Step back and just be a weekend father? Let Ethan grow up in that tiny apartment when I have the means to give him so much more?" "No," Jessica said carefully, "but maybe start by asking Olivia what she wants. What would make her life better, not what you think would make it better." Robert fell silent, considering her words. Finally, he asked, "Do you think she could ever forgive me for not being there all these years?" "I think that's between you and her," Jessica replied. "But I also think Olivia's fear isn't really about what you did or didn't do back then. It's about whether she can trust who you are now." Later that evening, Jessica's doorbell rang unexpectedly. She opened it to find Ethan standing there, his casted arm decorated with colorful signatures, and behind him, both Olivia and Robert. "We come bearing pizza," Olivia announced, holding up a box. "As thanks for being our accidental counselor, and for answering my wrong number," Ethan added proudly. Jessica laughed, ushering them in. "To what do I owe this surprise?" "We have news," Robert said, his hand resting lightly on Olivia's shoulder, "and we wanted you to be the first to know." Jessica looked between them expectantly, noting how much more relaxed they both appeared compared to earlier meetings. "I've accepted the CNO position," Olivia revealed, "with some conditions. I'll be implementing a new work-life balance initiative across all hospitals as my first project." "That's wonderful," Jessica said sincerely. "Congratulations." "There's more," Robert added. "I've decided to scale back my own workload, delegate more to my executive team so I can focus on what's important." His gaze shifted meaningfully to Ethan and Olivia. "We're going to try," Olivia explained simply. "Not rushing into anything, but seeing if we can build something new together. For Ethan and for ourselves." As they settled around Jessica's small dining table, Ethan regaled them with stories from school, while the adults exchanged knowing glances over his head. Jessica observed the subtle changes, how Robert no longer dominated the conversation, how Olivia seemed more comfortable expressing her opinions, how they both deferred to each other when discussing Ethan's care. Later, while Ethan was showing Jessica his cast signatures, Olivia and Robert stepped onto her small balcony for a moment of privacy. Through the glass door, Jessica watched as Robert said something that made Olivia laugh, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so tender and familiar that Jessica found herself looking away, feeling like an intruder. When they returned inside, there was a quiet certainty between them that hadn't been there before. "We should get Ethan home," Olivia said, checking her watch. "School tomorrow." "Can Jessica come to my science fair next week?" Ethan asked eagerly. "I'm doing my project on communication technology and wrong numbers," the adults laughed. "Of course she's invited," Robert assured him. "She's family now." The simple statement warmed Jessica unexpectedly. As she walked them to the door, Olivia hung back a moment. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. Robert told me about your conversation." "I hope I didn't overstep," Jessica replied. Olivia shook her head. "You made him understand what I couldn't explain myself." She hesitated. "He didn't propose, you know. He was going to, had the ring and everything. But after talking with you, he decided to wait, to give us time to rebuild properly." "That sounds wise," Jessica agreed. "Instead, he asked if he could take me on a proper date," Olivia continued, a smile playing at her lips. "Dinner at the same little Italian restaurant where we had our first date 7 years ago, just the two of us getting to know each other again." "And Ethan?" "Is thrilled that Mom and Dad are practicing being a family," Olivia quoted with fond exasperation, "though I suspect he's orchestrated more of this than any of us realize. Yesterday, he accidentally showed Robert an old photo album I kept hidden, the one with all our pictures together from college." Jessica laughed. "Smart kid." "Too smart sometimes." Olivia glanced toward the hallway where Robert was helping Ethan put on his jacket. "It won't be easy. We're different people now." But she paused, watching the two most important men in her life with unmistakable affection. "I think maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to become these versions of ourselves before we could really work." 6 months later, Jessica received a text message with a photo attached. It showed Olivia, Robert, and Ethan standing in front of a modest but lovely home, sold sign visible in the foreground. The caption read, "New beginnings. We compromised. Smaller than he wanted. Nicer than I would have chosen. Perfect for the three of us. Housewarming next Saturday. You better be there, lucky wrong number." Jessica smiled, remembering the frightened boy calling a wrong number, the worried mother at the park, the uncertain father just discovering his son. How a simple misdialed digit had changed all their lives. She typed her reply, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." As she set down her phone, Jessica reflected on how sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest mistakes, how wrong numbers can lead to right connections, how families aren't always formed in the traditional way. Sometimes they're built through chance meetings, hard conversations, and the courage to try again. For Olivia and Robert, the journey was just beginning. They had years of catching up to do, trust to rebuild, and a shared future to navigate. But they had Ethan, their bright, perceptive son, who had unknowingly set everything in motion with a single phone call. And they had each other, older, wiser, and finally ready to embrace the second chance they never expected to have. Full circle indeed.